Hey everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Bar podcast. I'm Denisa Tova, your host, and I am super excited to introduce you to an absolutely remarkable woman who has carved out and really an esteemed place in herself in the legal world. LaToya James is a family law and criminal defense attorney, and she's the owner of her own law firm, the James Firm. She is fierce yet compassionate, and her journey, I would say, is both inspiring and really profound, from serving as an assistant district attorney to founding the James Firm, her own law firm. So it's a great honor to have you here, LaToya.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
So your transition from assistant district attorney to starting your own firm, I mean, that's nothing short of remarkable. Tell me, what sparked your move toward establishing your practice, and what was that like?
So I never viewed myself as a lifelong prosecutor. In law school, one of my professors, asked what I thought my career trajectory was going to be, and I said I wasn't really sure. And he says, "Well, I'll tell you, you are a prosecutor. You should apply to the DA's office." So, and he was a prosecutor in Nassau at the time. So I applied to the Suffolk District Attorney's Office. I was offered the job. I took it. I loved it. I realized that without question, I belonged in the courtroom. There was no question in my mind. Got the bug. But then, between student loans and, all of the other responsibilities that I had, and because I knew I was not going to be a lifelong prosecutor, I started to wanted to start my own practice. So in late 2013, early 2014, I left the DA's office after 7.5 years and launched my firm.
Just like that.
Yeah, I think, my grandmother passed away in 2012, and
Sorry.
I had always thought to myself that that was my biggest fear. And I couldn't imagine what my life would be like without her in my life. And when I was still alive and I had survived her death, at that point, I really didn't have much fear of anything else because that was the thing in my life that I thought I wouldn't be able to survive. So at that point, I just started saving, planning, putting all the pieces in place. And when I was ready to go, I was ready to go. And I launched a virtual law firm, which at that point didn't really exist. Like it wasn't a thing, but I like to say I don't have a trust fund. No one was going to write me a check. So I didn't have the money to hang a shingle, much less anything to hang a shingle on. So I said, I'll try to figure out a way where I wasn't using a PO box, wasn't using my home address, and there was a virtual office suite available in my neighborhood. So I said, I'll sign up for this and I'll just start heading to court. I'll figure it out. I had a pretty good reputation and the judges were very good to me and started assigning me cases. So I was able to be in court every day. And it just kind of took off from there. And then within 3 months of my practice, I was offered a consulting position with a phenomenal domestic violence agency, Long Island Against Domestic Violence. They became my biggest client. And quite frankly, it replaced my DA salary. I mean, that was just a gift from God. So everything on top of that really became, gravy because I was able to pay my bills, which was my biggest concern. And my firm has just taken off exponentially. And then because I run a virtual firm, when COVID happened and the court system became virtual, it was, my Super Bowl. It was the best scenario for me.
There's so much packed in what you just said. I don't even know where
I
to
know.
begin. But first, I mean, what an amazing way to pay a tribute to your grandmother. That is so profound and so beautiful. And to leave such a wonderful, or to continue such a wonderful legacy. And then, I'm an open book, and I say what's in my mind and in my heart. And I have to say also, for you to be a prominent African American woman, running your own law firm, that's both empowering and inspiring. what advice would you give to other aspiring women, especially from the African American community, looking to carve out a similar career path like you?
You know, your reputation is everything. Your name really is all you have. And I have been extremely, extremely fortunate that when my name enters a room, because of the relationships I formed along the way and the network I formed along the way, and just being myself many, many times. I mean, quite frankly, just being having the opportunity to be with you today, right? It was somebody else who mentioned my name, and here I am. So that's what has been my experience here in Suffolk County. I'm not from here. My family's not from here. But I just try to be my authentic self in every room that I'm in. Like you, I'm very unfiltered, always professional, but very unfiltered. You know what you're going to get. I don't think there's anyone that's ever misunderstood anything I had to say. I'm extremely clear when I speak. You know my intention. My heart is clear. I always have a smile on my face, regardless of what's coming out of my mouth. It's always with a smile on my face, which can be weird, right? But
Yeah.
and then also, I try my best to always be the most prepared, the most proficient. I'm always ready. Every single judge I've appeared before, they know, when are you ready? Now. I'm ready for trial now. If I filed a petition, I'm ready for trial on the return date. And if you filed a petition and a respondent has hired me, you better be ready for trial on the first court date, right? So, because I'm always prepared, because I'm always ready, I try to be always on time. I try to be always respectful. I truly care about my clients. We have a different
Mm.
relationship. I don't advertise for business. Clients only come to me under very specific set of circumstances, and that's my private clients, and other clients. So because of that, if you have found me, it's because either you have figured out that you need me, or someone who really cares about you has sent you to me. So I take that responsibility very, very seriously.
Wow, I'm just getting completely pulled into what you're saying because it sounds so simple and it's so powerful. As you mentioned, having a clear heart, and is what you see is what you get, being authentic, being prepared. There's really nothing magical to it. I think many times we hide behind sort of our ego, think that we're not good enough, and afraid to express our voice. And that's why the podcast, the gist of it is to be vulnerable, and there is something to be said about, there's a strength in it. So that is really powerful, and I can sense your energy. You have been, we spoke for very little, and I understand that you have been, you're a mom, and you have
I
been at
am.
a forefront in, yes, in battling against domestic violence and advocating for children. And as a result, do these harsh realities in your profession impact your parenting style, make you maybe more protective parent? How do they impact conversations with your own children?
So I have two daughters. And because I don't only represent women, I do represent men, but because I work primarily with women, it has absolutely impacted my parenting style. I come from a long line of very strong women. And I used to think that that was a good thing. I no longer think that a woman being strong is a good thing. That has evolved. I think us always trying to be strong and trying to be the ideal um, hasn't always served us, because then no one checks on the strong one.
Mm.
And I find that the strong ones within families are the ones who are suffering the most, because people in our sphere realize us as strong, identify us as strong, and have no issue with putting something else on our plate because it'll just be fine, you know? And I don't want my daughters to have that identity. You know, one of the things I hate now, despise now, is this image of the strong Black woman because it just gives you the opportunity to say, you know, she can handle it, you know, and I don't want them to do that. I, of course, want them to have inner strength, and my girls are exactly who I want them to be, you know, and they're exactly who they
Mm,
want themselves to be. Um, but we have very, very open conversations about being capable of taking care of yourself, having standards and all of those things, but also having boundaries for the people who are in your life, being clear about what you want, and more importantly, what you don't. You know, it's very
mm,
easy to identify what you want, but sometimes it takes years to identify what you don't. And fortunately or unfortunately, I come into contact every single day with a lot of people who are in the situations they're in because they don't have standards, right?
mm.
So my daughters have a standard for themselves and for the people in their circle and for how they should be treated, you know, and they're able to say, no, I'm tired. No, I can't do one more thing. Or, you know what? Yes, I can do one more thing, but I don't want to do that one extra thing. So, no, I'm not going to do that. And be okay with saying no and understanding that no is a full sentence and it does not require an explanation. And you don't owe anything
Yes.
to anyone, you know, and that is a lesson that sometimes takes women, particularly, a lifetime to learn.
That is so true. And you said inner strength.
Mhm.
Yeah, on the outside, we can make ourselves, look stronger and put on a certain image, and use certain words, adapt a certain language, that would make us appear basically strong, but on the inside, that's it has to
Right.
you have to be comfortable with who you are, have just a natural self-love and respect for yourself. I have a 23-year-old daughter, and that's really, we have these conversations every single day, is just listening to yourself and letting the rest go, and then not comparing yourself to anybody. Just be comfortable in your own skin and who you are. And then to the second point about this people pleasing, the answer is no. The answer is no. You do not have to offer an explanation, and you can say it respectfully and be
Absolutely.
completely relaxed into it.
100,
That's great,
100.
great advice.
You know, my girls
So
know you came in this world through one hole all alone, and you're leaving through another hole all alone. The
yeah,
dash in the middle, you
yeah,
better be satisfied with what happened in that dash in the middle.
that's really profound. You're absolutely right, and everything is temporary, and really, instead of having your mind being occupied by all the noise, you just remove that personal mind out of it, the personal ego, and just focus on, use your mind, I say, to create, to express gratitude, love, to inspire, and then just let everything else go, while you're here, on this earth. So that's, yeah, that is so important. You made a big change. You did something daring, I would say. Last summer, you had sort of this momentous trip to Mexico that had bittersweet undertone due to the pandemic. Tell me about the trip, and how does it go? Actually, how does it go hand in hand with your philosophy that I know you strictly adhere to, prioritize life over making a living
So this summer, actually. So in April
this summer?
of the year, I realized that I was becoming way too overwhelmed. And I had a number of things going on. And I decided that this summer, well, we always travel, but I wanted to really spend an inordinate amount of time with my children, an inordinate amount of time reassessing my priorities and my own goals, prioritizing my health, and just those kinds of things. So I started advancing my cases that were on during the summer and having conversations with my colleagues like, we are going to either resolve this case, we are going to try this case, or any client that required too much of me was going to have to find a new attorney or be okay with seeing me in September, because my children's last day of school was going to be my last day that I was going to be putting work as even on my list of priorities. And then we would be back in September and we would regroup. And we were able to do that. I was able to resolve a number of cases. I tried 10 cases just in the month of June alone. And whatever came in over the summer that was new and it was an emergency, of course, it was taken care of. But if it wasn't an emergency, and by the way, emergency as defined by me, not as defined by the client, it was not going to get done. So, when my daughters were done with school, we went to Mexico for like 9 days and explored and enjoyed it and loved it. Came back, I worked for a week, and then we went to Cartagena, Colombia, and we stayed there for quite a bit of time and really explored and just immersed ourselves in the culture. And that was a beautiful place to be because the standard of beauty in that particular part of the world is us. All of the murals in Cartagena look like me. All of the advertising look like them, right? And we don't get to exist in a place where we are the standard of beauty on a normal basis. And it was amazing to watch them exist in that environment. And it was exactly what I was hoping it would be, and then we came back and we went to New Orleans with my goddaughter. And we just had like a beautiful summer, like a really, really beautiful summer. I have a daughter who wants to be a chef. In Cartagena, I was able to get her cooking classes from a Michelin chef. That
Wow.
is a once in a lifetime experience. My little one loves animals, right? So one of the reasons I chose Cartagena is because her favorite animal is a peacock, but her second favorite animal is a sloth. So she refuses to go to zoos. She will not go to zoos. She says nothing lives its best life in captivity. So I refuse to watch an animal not living its best life. So because of the way my brain works, I went on Google and I said, where can I see a sloth not in captivity? And the result was Parque Centenario in Cartagena, Colombia. There's a family of sloths that live in the wild there. So guess what? We were going to Parque Centenario in Cartagena, Colombia, right? And my family were walking in the park and I see it in the tree. And I said to my daughter, I was like, oh, that's a weird looking squirrel. And she goes, it's a sloth. I was like, she goes, Mom? She says, Mama, did you find me a sloth not in captivity? Yes, I did. Yes, I did, right? So yeah, I'm not gonna deal with custody and what I wanna find my daughter a sloth not in captivity. We watched that sloth for an hour and a half, living its best life, just like she said, right? That's what I want to
Yeah.
do with summers. My husband and I were watching a comedy show one night, and the comedian's like, how old are you? He's talking to someone in the audience, and she's like, oh, I'm whatever, 45. So he's like, okay, enjoy your next 40 summers, you know? And he
Yeah.
says that he thinks about life in summers, right? So I have a daughter
Mm.
who's a sophomore in high school. When she goes off to college, which means I have 2 summers left, right? If I'm lucky, where she's going to want to spend time with me. And my little one's in the 7th grade, which means I have what, 5 summers left? I'm not wasting my summers dealing with other people's drama. No, absolutely not. That will not be their memory, right? Of what their time in their home was, right? That cannot be their memory, and it
Wow.
won't. And it won't be.
Good for you. Because what I'm seeing here and hearing here. First of all, I love the sloth story. They're just being. They're just
Yes,
being. They're not
yes.
thinking, right? They're just being, and there's something about
Oh,
just being, watching, whether it's a little puppy, we have a little puppy, and just
mhm.
watching them play. There's no, it's purely unconditional, uncorrupted being that's just being. And there's a lesson in that too. So you're just
Yeah,
putting your daughters through school of life and the way it should be. Because
absolutely.
I remember Judge Cheryl Joseph, who connected us actually, and she said it. She said, as much as I love this job, it will not love you back the same way. Meaning, you know, she's devoted in what she does professionally. So are you, being a zealous advocate. However, right, there is that, and then there's the personal life, and that's really important, and not losing sight of that, especially now where these lines are sort of blurred, since we have permission to work virtually, and that's not necessarily the best, where you can't leave the office and just sort of leave it behind. So that's really great. Are you guys, what are you watching, any shows that you find particular, that you find particular interesting?
So, I don't watch TV, and my children don't really
Good for
watch
good for
television.
you.
Um,
Are you streaming any
yeah.
shows?
No, I really don't. I have really, if I'm going to watch something on TV, it's probably going to be CNBC. I'm a girl who I don't play around about my finances, so I like to obtain information. And if I'm listening to something, if I'm going to fill my space, if I'm going to fill the only space that I have with something, it's going to be something that's going to enrich me. So I listen to, quite frankly, a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of TD Jakes, Tony Robbins. I want to be inspired. I want to learn new things. I have an enormous amount of people who plug into me for energy. And if I'm going to pour into all of these people, I cannot have a drained battery, right? So I
Mm,
want to learn new positive sayings. I want to do whatever I can to be able to charge them and charge them fully when they come to me. All I do all day long is try to help people put themselves back together, right?
mm,
So
that's a lot. Yeah.
I want to be able to be complete, right? And a complete resource for whoever I'm engaging with, whether that be my daughter or my spouse or my clients or the judge, whatever the case may be. I want to be 100% in each of those roles in that moment. But in order to do that, I have to be fully charged, right? So I try to like fill
Yeah.
fill myself. Um,
Mm.
I'm so sorry, I don't really watch TV.
You know what? Good for you. Good for
Yeah.
you. I embrace similar philosophy. Although I go for the mind flossing, so to speak, where I watch
Mhm.
something that's completely mindless, because I like to soak it all up and grow and grow and grow and grow. Um, what what is your personal pet peeve?
I don't like people who are not accountable and who don't take
Mm,
responsibility for themselves. I encounter an enormous amount of victims, um, but I don't like the victim mentality. So that is a huge pet peeve. If you've managed to live your entire life and nothing is your fault, I would prefer that we not engage with each other because that's not something that I can respect. It's not something I understand. It's not something I can respond to, right? So many times I say to my clients, I hear you. I understand what you're saying, but based upon whatever it is you do for a living or where you live, we would have never met, right? We would have had no reason for our paths to cross. We're only here because you made a decision to have a baby with a jerk. That's why we're here, right? Or whatever the case may be, right? And I'm telling you that if you want to be successful in family court, you're going to have to be able to say to yourself and own I made a bad decision, whatever the case may be, of having a decision with a jerk. And then we can go from there. And if you're able to do that, the likelihood that we are going to be successful is very, very high. How do I know?
Mm,
Because family court judges don't encounter reasonable people, right? Who are accountable for
yeah.
how they got into their situation every day. And if any judge gets a glimmer that perhaps you're the most reasonable person in the room, they're probably going to give you what you want, right? So long before we go to court, the first thing we're going to work on, more than the strategy of your case, more than we're going to work on, what did I do to get me here, right? What is it about me? What is it about the things I like in a man or a
Mm,
woman or whatever the case may be that caused me, right? We are going to do self work. Then we're going to go to court and then we're going to win.
right.
And then we're going to win because
Yeah.
we've done the work. Not only that, whatever attack comes at you, it will bounce off you, and you will release the image of victimization and the identity of victimization because you can't call me anything I haven't already called myself,
Mm,
right? No matter what
that's
your
powerful.
cross-examination questions are,
Yeah.
it won't matter because I'm ready to fully admit because I've already owned my role. So I'm not here to
Right.
deny. Yes, I did that. Yes, I said that,
Mm,
and it's also very empowering. And you can see
right.
the transition when people think about themselves as I'm here because I chose this, as opposed to
Mm,
I'm here because this is what happened to me, right?
right.
If you just own whatever
Right.
happened to you as a choice, okay? And of course, that's not every single situation, okay? But in the family court world, you're likely here because of a choice you made and probably because you didn't have the standard, but you didn't even know that that was a
Yeah.
standard, right? So this is not about assessing blame or fault. It's just
Right.
taking responsibility. I tell my clients, you're the CEO of your life. You are the
Yeah.
CEO of your life, right? The
And write a
buck
new
stops with
chapter.
you,
Yeah.
correct, right? The
Yeah.
buck
Very,
stops with
very
you.
true.
When you're the
Right.
leader, everything's your
Right.
fault. Even if it's not your fault, it's your fault.
Right.
So own it, right?
Right.
And then let's move on. And then let's go out there and win, right? Your kids are
Yeah, that's
watching.
look, it's taking the ownership. I think that's what set you apart, and also understanding what role you can play to move forward. And that's really great. You setting them up for the long journey as opposed to just let's just focus on what is now. But not only that, but when you do come out of this, you can start healing and write a new chapter in your life. I've been through many, 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 many transitions. And yet I chose, like you said, the word choose, to write a new chapter. And I choose to also look back and realize, there was a wisdom in everything that, I've experienced. So that is, I think that's important. Taking accountability for yourself. And again, I like to say to remove that personal self out of it and go, okay, now we will deal with it, and then let's move forward. And I think the biggest issue that I see is when people generally are looking to events, things, and people on the outside to make them feel better on the inside. So,
Yes.
yeah, unless you clear that up, you will make the same mistake in your next relationship and put yourself in the same situation. So, we can just go on and on and on. This is such an important topic. And listen, LaToya, your journey embodies resilience, empathy, obviously deep commitment to justice, your unwavering advocacy, for people, children. It's truly inspiring. And so I want to thank you for being here today and sharing really your rich and multifaceted story with us.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
And to our listeners, to learn more about LaToya and how to get a hold of her, please click on her bio link below. And I appreciate you joining us in this very enlightening conversation. And join us again on Beyond the Bar podcast every Sunday for a new chat. And I also publish each episode on all of my social media channels, and you can see the links below. And until next time, be well and stay curious.